Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the October GrTS event. Thank you for coming. We're excited to have you here today. My name is Lisa Moreau. I'm the Associate Vice President for Research and Associate Dean of Graduate Studies. They asked me to make a couple of announcements before we get started today. First, the GrTS event for next month, November, will be on the 14th, November 14th, and the topic will be tips for dealing with conflict. The next graduate student social will be on November 29th, and that's going to take place at the Crash Valley Fun Park, and you're going to have to put your bowling skills on display. So be prepared. I think that's all of the announcements I need to get through, so we'll get started. Today's speaker is Pamela Martin from the USU Library. Pamela is the coordinator of outreach and peer learning, and some of you may recognize her as she was one of our TEDx speakers last year on the USU campus. Pamela is going to be talking to us today about literature reviews, something that's important to all master's and doctoral students. I'm actually in the midst of writing a literature review, so I think this is an awesome event to attend. And so she's going to talk with us about how to write them, about useful tools. And so, Pamela, take it away.
Okay, thank you. And if you can't hear online, will you let us know, or if we need to use the mic in here too? Usually I joke that I yell teach, so I'm pretty loud usually. But if I'm going too fast or if I'm not loud enough, then you can just let me know. So, today we are going to talk about literature reviews for graduate students, what you need to do, what you need to expect. But I realize you're all from different areas and can differ a bit discipline to discipline. So I'm probably going to stay pretty generic. But by the end of today, you'll leave with hopefully some examples of dissertations, theses from your own field with included literature reviews. You can look at those too, so that'll be helpful. So does anyone have any general questions before we begin? Okay, just to introduce myself, my name is Pamela Martin. I am the coordinator for outreach and peer learning. I've been a reference and instruction librarian here at USU for about 14 years. So hopefully I know what I'm doing by now. So if you ever have any questions, if you see me in the library, it is my job to help you. And I do have my email on the last slide that I'll put up too. But know that you all have your own librarians. I am the librarian for many of the engineering departments. I do EED, ECE, and, oh, who am I forgetting? Biological engineering. I love the biological. I didn't even do that. So I work with those departments, and I sit down with graduate students, and I talk to them, and we go through searches, and we talk about their lit reviews all the time. So, but again, today is pretty much going to be an overview. So if you have specific questions, please ask them. I might need to refer you back to your subject librarian, but please let me know when we talk about that. And I don't mind interruptions at all, so please just raise your hand if you have questions. Or feel free, if you're here, to get up and grab more food if you need to, or get up and get water too. So I'm hoping this can be a pretty informal but moving, learning experience for all. So, lit review. What's a lit review? You can tell me and not read the slide what a lit review is. Who wants to talk to the librarian? Come on, guys. Yeah, right in the back. All right. Yeah, so it's usually specific to a certain topic. It's not all the literature out there ever written, but it's specific to a field, to a discipline, but also it might be just all the research on using ice structures in construction. Like it might be very specific, if that makes sense. So I think we hear literature and we don't think of scientific literature, but of course that's what we're talking here. And sometimes we think of review and we think movie reviews or book reviews, and that's not what we're talking about here either, of course. It's a review of the literature telling you what research has come before. But what's really important for you to know, I think the more important definition is here. A literature review must be organized and related directly to the thesis or research question you're developing. So that's for you, that's how it's going to be defined. It synthesizes your results. It identifies areas of controversy in the literature, but also formulating questions that need further research. Have you heard that? That you need to do something that's kind of new. What gaps are there in the literature? This is your chance to say, I'm filling in this gap. My work is important. But you have to talk about everybody else's work to kind of do that, right? And it must include sources from multiple perspectives. It's not a summary of one source after another. When we were undergraduates, we probably did this a lot. You're like, oh, professor says, I gotta have 5 sources. Source 1, paragraph 1. Source 2, paragraph 2. Source 3, paragraph 3. That's terrible. Do not do that. You are better than that, okay? You organize by ideas. We are here on campus at a university because of ideas, okay? You can organize these ideas into conversations where your sources mix mingle, okay? So you want to synthesize them together. So any questions about this? What a literature review, what it is, what it isn't? Questions? Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the steps to take. Number 1 is me. You, my friend, okay? So you want to find your subject library. And I put this as step 1 because I am very egocentric. But we put this as step 1 because it will help you in the end. I can't tell you how many students I have seen that say, thank you so much. You saved me so much time. And I can't tell you how many students I've also seen who are like, I didn't have time to talk to you. But the thing is, if you come and talk to us, we save you time. It is our job to save you time. We work for you and we save you time. The only reason I get paid is to help you, okay? So make those tuition dollars, those taxpayer dollars that you pay to fund my salary work for you, okay? So you can set up an appointment with us in person. You can chat with us online. You can Skype with you. So anything you want to do, we can share screens sometimes if you are on one of the other campuses. If you're traveling for research, we can still talk to you. We are available. I normally work about, like 8 to 5 or something like that, but I will happily set up evening appointments or appointments in the weekend if that works for you, and that's just for you for most of us librarians. So let us know when you need help. And by the end of this, I'm hoping everyone leaves with their librarian's information. I brought all the librarians' cards are here, and for those of you who are at a distance, we'll also go online and look for library. So we'll do that. So number 2, define your research topic. So hopefully you've probably done this. You've been talking to professors. You've been working down this path. As librarians, you can help you a little bit with this too. But of course, you're going to be guided with what your advisors are saying, right? You have a thesis committee and you want to listen to them and stuff. But this is an important step that will guide your research and really help you if you thought about it before you jump in searching. So the number 2 thing on here is look for previous reviews. Standalone or part of an article to get your credit. Has anyone found like a peer-reviewed article, the whole thing is a review? Okay, so these exist. So sometimes in scholarly articles, you can see the lit review section, right? And it's just a section, sometimes it's a few pages, sometimes it's a few paragraphs. But there are articles that are just reviews. And at the end, if you remind me, I will show you how to find this review article. There's usually a little button where you can put reviews and it'll just bring up reviews. And if you're lucky enough to have scholarly articles, standalone scholarly article written in your area, it can be really helpful. So I think that's really important. You also want to document your search process. I mean, at this point, you might just be doing like putting in some weird, stuff into Google and seeing what fits and what doesn't. Just searching around. You'll become more and more refined and maybe want to go into the library databases later, but that's great for this. And if you wanted to follow along, by the way, this handout that I've provided, and Abby, I can send you a copy of this too, follows along in all these points. So So this one is the only one I kind of changed from this handout. Is it said to select appropriate search tools, but I just put select appropriate tools, and some of those are search tools, subject-specific databases, for example, and some of them are citation managers or organizers. Has anybody chosen a citation manager or organizer? What have you chosen? Mendeley? Okay, everybody loves Mendeley? Zotero? Yeah, I do Zotero, okay. Zotero, anybody for EndNote? You're brave. EndNote can work really well sometimes too. I just use Zotero because it's free and I'm cheap, I guess. I guess I could ask the university to buy it, but I don't, like having it, knowing what it is ahead of time really helps. Like right when you begin searching, if you find a citation organizer and get used to it, you can be putting those sites in there already. So all the sources that you may end up using, maybe you won't, but a lot of them you probably will, and then it will organize them for you. You won't have to worry about this format or that format. If you have to change citation format for some reason, say you submit part of it to a journal, the citation manager will do it. Yeah. You mean the compound was published or? Well, honestly, I'm not a chemistry librarian, so you might want to talk to them. I know that you can actually build out and draw different molecules and then search based on them with chemistry databases, which is a lot different than what I do normally in the engineering databases. But I think it should be possible. I just don't search in that area, so I would refer you to your subject librarian on that. Pretty subject specific, so sorry. But it should be possible. It should be pretty easy. But I might not be the person to that. Does that make sense? But by the time you leave, we'll get you the name of that person and their email. We'll all get pestering them after, okay? Or maybe you get pestering, depending on who your librarian is. So other questions though? Okay, so databases, I don't know, I'm just gonna go in real fast and show you what that looks like. Well, if you go to databases from our home page, actually, if you just go to our library home page, you just click find articles and databases right here. I just want to make the point that we own hundreds of these. So we subscribe to hundreds of databases, and some of them have full text in here, so PDFs. Others of them are just search tools. And you can see for every major you have different databases selected. So for example, if I was to go into chemistry, which again I am not the best person on, but chemistry and biochem, here's your librarian, come up with a picture, and then here's different places that you can search. So abstracts might be the best place. Talking about how to read. But again, I like the first pick. So, questions about that? So these databases are how you really get into the scholarly literature, especially without paying a paywall. You pay for databases that talk to each other in some cases and try to get you to get text. Whereas Google Scholar, you might hit a paywall. You never pay for anything. We'll find stuff for you even if you don't own it. You can get some other libraries. So be aware of that. So, citation manager. We do have help with this, and there is a link right at on the back of this page, on the back of the first handout, that says libguides.usu.edu/organizers. It's the very last one. But we actually have help for each citation manager, and we have an expert in each citation management system. So if you see it out there, we have someone to help. So sometimes you get stuck and you're like, I can't export this, or it's not importing right, or I need to fix it. So you can come and talk to us, and we'll try to talk you through it. Good questions about that? Okay. Okay, so select appropriate tools. I think it's super important to do this early. And citation manager, I did put in capital letters, trust me on this, because I think sometimes we begin and we're like, oh, I've got 10 sources, I'm fine. And then by the end, you'll have 80, 100, 200. It can get rather big really fast, too. It's much more helpful to have a software that can deal with all your different citations, all the different sources you have in that. So please do that. If you do nothing else, do that and talk to us. So the other thing you have to do is, I think this is exactly the opposite of what we're used to doing. Because the internet has taught us to just browse and waste time. And somebody probably is collecting this information, but we're not aware of how we spent the last 30 minutes browsing online. But when you're doing searches for literature review, especially if you're trying to be exhaustive at all, you really have to be strategic. Where have I searched? What keywords did I use? And then what keywords got me better stuff? And as I'm reading through even just the titles, am I seeing other words that I should search on? Somebody actually submitted a question talking about keywords for searching. And like, you know, I could call it blue, but somebody else called it purple. And really, it's kind of in the same family. So how do you know which keywords you search? And the truth is, searching makes you a better searcher. It teaches you different keywords as you're going through. Does that make sense? Because you go through, a good example of this is somebody who wanted to talk about I think it was abusive behavior passed from grandparents to grandchildren. So skipping parents. Like I kept getting stuff on parents, and then and I couldn't broaden it out enough, and I just wasn't getting anything. But then I came across a term called intergenerational violence and stuff like that. And so I learned these different words that I could put in that were working a little bit better than just, you know, domestic abuse and stuff, you know. So I would play around with it a lot, but notice while you're playing around, we're so taught not to notice while we're searching, to just browse around and kind of play. And will we be able to get back there? Who knows? Nobody knows. But here you have to be really conscious, you have to be really present. Very, very mindful searching here. So it's just like doing yoga or meditating, but way less payoff. No, I'm just kidding. It has a ton of payoff because you're going to get, you know, your thesis or your dissertation. So consider breaking complex searches into component parts. I think a lot of people search for exactly what they want to do, or at least that's how we start out, especially because we're like, okay, I need to know if anybody's done this experiment because I want to know, I want to do something a little new. So I'm going to put in the whole experiment into my search. And then we find nothing. And then we're like, oh crap, I can't find anything. And you just keep searching on the exact thing you want to do instead of saying, oh no, I'm going to take this component over here and search on it, and this component over here and bring it together. Does that make sense? Like you can search, and some things are so multidisciplinary now, you about have to, really, because they're in such different areas. But if you're bringing stuff together, and you can't find anything when you put all your search terms in, just try half your search terms. See what happens. I always start my searches super broad and then work my way down. And then try it together and then take keywords out when I'm not getting them. So you've got to be very strategic about it. And we can play with the, see, I refer to it as play because I like searching. You don't have to. I'm paid for this, right? And I like it. But it is kind of like trial and error. Just like when you're playing a video game for the first time, you get killed, right? Like you have to go in and try different things and see what works and avoid that mushroom because it doesn't give you extra lives. You know, you thought it would, it just killed you, you know? So you have to figure out which keywords just kill you and which to avoid that. Search options are great. Has everybody used quotes in searching? So quotes is like glue, it puts words together. You search for phrases, you put quotes around it. Works great in Google too. Same thing in the databases. Boolean is another one, so you can and things together. If you're like, I want all of these words, I'll put it in the but usually everything defaults to that. Everything defaults to anything. Or, it's really interesting, or in a search, what you should do is or like terms together. Car, or vehicle, or automobile. Because then, if you put an or in between those, it's getting you one of those. Not all of them, but it'll get you one of them. No, you do have to play with it. It is like a formula where it needs to know what comes first and stuff like that. So there is some logic that goes into it. But yeah, did you have a question?
I'm so relatively naive at how to use it with forwarding. So do you put ands and ors that be capitalized, or do you put spaces, or do you put marks around to separate?
They don't have to be capitalized or anything like that. So you can just put them in there. If you put them in quotes, though, it'll treat it as a quote. It won't treat it as an operator, if that makes sense.
So you put words in, then just any and
Yeah.
or without commas.
Yeah,
or,
so I would just put car, or auto, or vehicle. I mean, that's really basic search. You'd probably be doing different stuff. Sometimes I do it for UAVR, and then I'll put in quotes, unmanned aerial vehicle. That makes sense. Because I'm like, I don't care if it's the abbreviation for unmanned aerial vehicle or the actual phrase.
If you put parentheses around, does that group like in math or like?
Yeah, if you put parentheses around, it's just like in a math thing, like do this first, and then you do the rest. So, or if you put quotes together, that's kind of the reason of say do this first. Does that make sense? So it is kind of like a math problem a little bit with the logic that's written into it. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so I searched about first message things that it can have a lot of little internet and like different areas together so they can not different stuff.
Yeah, so in addition to or and, there's also not. So you can say not graduate students, but probably there, I would use this with caution. That not can mess you up. Because if you say, I don't know, if you say like not undergraduate students and it mentions both, then you won't get it. Does that make sense? And if you're like, oh, I would like that. But if you're getting a ton of stuff, putting not in there is pretty good. There's some cases where it really helps, but I would still play with it without it and see if it's helping. Like, because you're the best judge. There's not going to be any perfect formula. You're the best judge of whether something is relevant to you, whether it works for you, that sort of thing. So if the results that you're getting are better, definitely use it. Yeah. Other questions? I didn't print them. Other questions? Okay. Oh, I wanted to say, be cautious with any filtering that may introduce unconscious bias. So filtering, sometimes putting a not can do that too, but unconscious bias, especially if you're in something like humanities or social sciences, my favorite example right now is Black Lives Matter. If you're doing research on policemen and you put in police brutality, what kind of connotation does that have? Hopefully not good. So police brutality, that phrase is always going to be negative. You know, how do police talk about it? How do the policemen talk about it? Do you know what they use? What phrase they use? Excessive force. Sounds different, right? Like it's not that it sounds positive or anything. It's still pretty negative, but there's a little less bias there, maybe. Or if you only search on police brutality, you're only going to get certain things. Does that make sense? So be thinking about this, especially if you're in humanities, social sciences, education. Sometimes there are words that have bias in them, and be aware of that, okay? And it doesn't mean that you can't search them. You actually should, but you should also search for those other perspectives. That's, oh, you can set up alerts. Has anybody set up alerts? So if you had a great search, say Laura, you put your not in there and you're getting great stuff. You're like, I want to know if anything comes out in the next 12 months. So I'm going to put an alert to email me weekly if anything comes out. You can do that in this database. And then citation management software, again, is really important. And I think we've talked about keeping a record, being very conscious of how you search. So questions about that? And this is a step where the librarian really helps. Like if you get stuck and your keywords aren't working at all, like go to your librarian. Like I live for this kind of stuff. It's really fun for me. And I feel kind of bad because I see a frustrated student come in and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be fun. But it's fun for me because I can hopefully help you. And also I like a challenge. Like, you know, I don't know, I'm going to have to think about this. Like, or let's talk through it together. It's really, really fun for me. And I mean, it is kind of scary, you know, when Google fails me, but a librarian can help, yeah.
So in the last one there said, you know, you're saying to keep records,
Yeah.
organize. How how as a librarian, if you're doing all the searching, you pass it off to help them be organized?
So sometimes I will print out the search history. On most databases, you can actually click on a search history and you can print it out. And that, to me, is the easiest thing to do, honestly, is to look at that search history and print it out. Because then I know what keywords I use. It'll tell me how many results I got, depending on what search it is. So then I can go through and say, okay, in Scopus, I did these 8 searches and only the last one was needed. And why was that last one? Maybe I would even go through and highlight the keywords I think that are working. Does that make sense? So I can't tell you how to do it. You might have a better way. Maybe you want to make an Excel file and like be really diligent about it. But I would at least print out the search history. Is that a good answer, or are you looking for something else?
No, I mean, so as a librarian, you find things. I was just trying to find out if you like digitally send anything to the individual. Okay, this is what I found. This is the history. This is the articles. These are the links.
So you can do a little bit of that. Like, unfortunately, I can't spend hours each day on your dissertation.
I don't know why.
I know. I do work for you, but I work more to empower you to be able to do this yourself. And the reasoning there is that you understand your topic better than I ever will. Because a lot of times when I do send stuff to Google Interview, I say, hey, you need to read through this stuff. Like 2 or 3 of these may be great, and the rest will probably be fine. Because you'll know better than me. Or maybe you found like some of them already different needs, like so. When I work with a student, it's always better for me to sit down with them and we can go through it together. Now, there are some cases where I'm like, hey, your question's really hard. I'm going to need to step back and talk to some other librarians, and then maybe we can get together. I had a student the other day who stumped me so hard. So I had to talk to a few other librarians, and then we were able to go back and we found some good stuff, but it took a while. And it was me talking to other librarians and me getting more feedback from him and going to other librarians. So that one is usually going that fast. But usually it helps if you're there. So you have to do the judgment. I can never send all the stuff, yeah.
Well, this is like concept of exhaustive literature search.
Yeah.
And it seems like no matter how much I do, I'm always finding more and more.
Yeah.
Why was this not the first thing I found? Do you have any tips on when you personally learn to like how to fix or feel?
That's the worst question for librarians. I never want to call it. Yeah. Sometimes the alerts can help because then if new stuff is coming out, you can see it. It would depend what area you're in. I would ask you about the databases and we might sit down and go through all of them. Because if you only search one database, that's not cutting it. If you're only searching 2, that's probably not cutting it. If you never went to Google Scholar, what's wrong with you? I mean, you need to search a lot of places, and that's why you document it too. I think justify to yourself, to talk to the librarian, to say, is there a place I'm missing? But the truth is there could always be a few things that slip through the cracks, but we have tricks, hopefully, so you can catch the seminal stuff especially. And with all the databases, if you're really good about it, usually you'll be okay, but I mean, it's gonna happen. So yeah, I hate that word exhaustive, it scares me. I never know when to stop. No, like librarians are the worst, by the way, because we will keep helping you and you'll be like, stop, I don't want any more help. Like, please back off. So yeah, I've been at the desk and then like 2 hours later found something and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna email that guy. He left his email. That stupid patron left his email. Now I can email him all the time. No, so we'll send stuff all the time and we're really bad at stopping. So I understand, but yeah, I think it depends on the subject area and which databases you've been using the strategies. And keywords too. So, but talking to a librarian will make you feel better in your subject area. Other questions? The biggest thing again is to be mindful, to be organized about it. That really will help you. What sources to use? So, this is interesting too. Some of you, if you're going into exhaustive, the answer is maybe all of them, right? But what's really relevant and what's not, that can be a fine line sometimes. It's harder to traverse than you think. So there can be an inclusion-exclusion criteria, which can be really helpful. Because if you're looking at things, oh, I'm just looking at any publications after 19, that's really easy. I'm looking for things about this population, not that population. These sorts of things can help you narrow the scope, if that makes sense. And you might want to talk to your committee about this, to your chair about this too, so it should help. But the last one here, and the one that I think is really most important, is please do not use your wallet to ever pay for anything. How many of you have used interlibrary services? Okay. I'm assuming by the time you graduate, you will all have to do this. You're not Harvard. You don't own everything. Harvard doesn't even own everything. Like, so we have to borrow stuff. And we will borrow stuff from all around the country and give it to you if you don't know. And from all around the world. We get stuff from South Africa, Germany. We get stuff from all over. Sent to this library, we borrow stuff out. So please know that if you do think it's relevant to you and don't own it, you will get it for you. Yeah. We can't help with translating. You might be able to find someone on campus through the language department, maybe. But you can, when you request it, you can ask for English only to see if we can get you an English copy of it. There's a little box, I think, or something where it's like, I want English. Or you can list the languages that you accepted in here. You know, bilingual or not bilingual. Good question. Other questions? It really works pretty well. Most stuff you'll get in like a day or two. If you get a whole book, those have to be mailed here because you can't make a PDF out of a whole book. It's copyright, things will come after us. So they have to mail books. But for articles, for journal proceedings, you know. Okay. Okay. So the least fun stage is the reading. So hopefully y'all don't have this problem. I swear my 20s and my English 20s and so I read the title. I'm good. I got the abstract. I'm good. How many of you have been fooled by a title and an abstract into thinking it's the perfect article? Oh my gosh. So you really have to read the whole thing. If you're trying to scan quickly scholarly articles, there are strategies for that. And one of them, honestly, this is the toughest one for my engineers to understand, is that you don't have to understand all the numbers in an article to get the gist of it. They hate that because they're like, no, this formula is staring at me and I must understand it. It might have taken, you know, years in a lab to come up with that equation. You don't have to understand it right now. But you can also, unless you're looking specifically for methodology, if you're looking just to the results, sometimes you can scan over the methodology section, that sort of thing. I always read the discussion, always read any kind of conclusions, that stuff. But it really needs to be an active process. And it is a process that you need to be mindfully too. So take notes while you're doing it, see what's helpful, what's not. And the only way you can do that is to read. So we do suggest using a matrix to keep track of sources. Has anyone been introduced to the synthesis matrix that you have? Yes, if you call it a matrix, it's really just like it's not that scary. Has anyone seen this before? Yeah, I think they show it in the EED classes, but it really can help you try to get your stuff in order, sources in order. So up at the top, you would have different sources up there, and then you would have main ideas, methods, author info, those sorts of things. If the author has a lab that you're particularly paying attention to, you might put that in there. But really, what it comes down to is after you read, you can start to see main ideas or themes throughout the literature. And you can be like, oh, this guy talks about it here. This guy talks about it, this guy talks about it, this guy talks about it, this guy doesn't. You might have quotes over here with page numbers, that sort of thing. And then these main ideas could become, you know, pages, paragraphs, maybe even chapters in your thesis. Does that make sense? Probably not chapter, not hopefully, but it could be. So main ideas here help you organize so you avoid that. Source 1, paragraph 1. Source 2, paragraph 2. Doing reason. Source 3, paragraph 3, which is really not what you want to do. You want to group by idea. So this allows you to write down main ideas and where are the different sources of talking about. Does that make sense? So it can be a nice way of kind of organizing stuff. Now, other people do it different ways. You can use like colored post-it notes, like a different color for each source, and then mix them up and see if your sources are mixing and that sort of thing. So that can be fun too, but this gives you a lot.
Quick question
Yes.
on this. This is reference NC, stay on it. You guys say, are there kind of things, or do you do like an Excel file people make their own, or just kind of an easy way to indent it? You think there's a lot of words go in, like you paste them in,
Yeah.
or what's the best way to do it?
I've seen people do Word files. I've seen people put it in PowerPoint for different things. I would probably use Excel, but that's just personal preference because you can wrap the text and stuff and kind of control it. But it depends on how much you're going to take out too. I mean, the whole thing is you don't put everything from every source in here. Like as you're writing through, you're kind of catching the themes, you know, and some of your notes might be just like, maybe main idea 1 is like, I don't know. So that is examples that one. So if it was a history paper, maybe main idea 1 is background on women's rights, right? So it's background on women's rights, and you'd be like, oh, this guy has a nice overview. You might not even have a code in there, but you know you want to include him. He has a nice overview as with referencing things. Does that make sense? Like you wouldn't. Sometimes you might pick the right quotes. A lot of times you might have page numbers, but sometimes you won't have one. Questions? But really, it's up to you. I mean, you can make it however you want to. This is just one suggestion too. And the reason I show you this is not even because I expect you to do this table or I'm going to be so disappointed. It's because nobody ever makes this explicit, I feel like. Like we just talk about it like, oh, just mix your sources together. Like just mix them together, you'll be good. And it's like, no, how do I do that? I don't understand. And this is one strategy or how you can visualize something that probably hasn't been made very visual before. Another way you can do it is you can color code your sources. And then you can go through and highlight, like say, oh, I have pink source up here. And that whole paragraph is just pink. I'm not really mixing them in with anything. Do I need to do that? Do I need to worry about that? Am I doing synthesis here? Because most of the colors I see here, I got way too much blue. Am I plagiarizing blue author? Like, so you can kind of do it that way too. So there's different tactics you can take. But this one I think is easy for kind of visualizing. Oh, yeah, I can see how you do that. Questions? So, writing. So this is the hard part. I'm not a writer, first of all. You just preface it with that. I'm the librarian. I can help you evaluate information. I can help you find it. I can help you try to organize it. But when it comes to writing, I have students ask me to read over their pieces, and that's not what I do. So just so you know. But the most important thing to know about writing is at the very beginning, when you're looking for stuff, the goal is really to try to find an area like a low niche for your voice. That's the whole goal of it. I mean, you're looking for other people's voices, but you want to see how you fit in. So that's really the idea here. It's like your voice has a place in this conversation and finding where that place is in the conversation. Does that make sense? So synthesis allows you to group it, but honestly, you could, if you wanted to. I don't know if this one has it. Oh, yeah. So my thoughts. You are allowed to have thoughts on this. You probably do, and you're like, oh, his methodology is great. Like, source 2's methodology is great. I think I'm going to use it, but I'm going to do it a little differently than source 4. You know, like, so you can talk about things like that. Does that make sense? So most important thing about your dissertation. So please remember that. So if you're giving any source a lot of space, that means it's significant. So just be thinking about that, like which sources did you find the most helpful? Like you aren't undergraduates, hopefully you aren't doing just a lot of block quotes, that sort of thing, but really thinking about like, oh, can I give this guy more space because he's really seminal and been referred to in a lot of stuff, but he's not really important to me. So kind of navigating that space. Really, you should ask for feedback. Feedback is the greatest. Not from my students, because I'm not an expert in the lab. I'm an expert in the library, if that makes sense. But you know, get your advisor, get your chair to give you feedback. That's the most helpful. So, Lisa, I'm curious, you know, if you have anything to add, or you know, any person who sits on one.
No, I just think the one thing I would add is the organizational structure during the process is so important, and it's something that will make or break along the way. So I encourage you to use the tools that Ken was talking about, especially if it's an area you're not familiar with. One of the things we were talking about briefly is I'm right where you right now in an area where I'm very familiar with. So I can think, oh, I missed this or I missed that. But in an area where you're not familiar, the organizational structure has saved you. And that's the difference. So,
Well, and you can go back and say, oh my gosh, I did all these searches, and now that I've done all this reading, I need to go in this other area, like, or I need to use this other keyword that I didn't realize before, because maybe you're not as familiar as somebody like me. So it really can help you to have that record in your practice.
the other thing I guess you didn't mention that I'll just mention is one of the things I find most useful is when you find that key reference or a couple of key references, particularly if they've been in the literature for a little while, using the Scopus search to go backwards on them is one of the best things to do.
So I'll show you how to do that.
Okay, coming up. That's great.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to do that. So other thoughts, sorry, I didn't hear that. So I do want to point out that USU has something called Digital Commons, which is actually comes out of the library, so self-promotion, I guess. But Digital Commons harvests all the dissertations and theses, so you can actually see dissertations and theses written by other people, and you can look for it. Because I think another question that came about this was like, oh, is there a rule of thumb for how long a lit review is? And I'm like, no, I don't want to tell you anything because depending on your discipline, it can really vary. And depending on your subject within that discipline, it could also really vary. Yeah, so but you can, if you go to Digital Commons at USU Digital Commons, you can actually see USU Research and Scholarship, and you go to student work, and then you can browse graduate studies. And you actually, and you just want to look at Plan B and other reports you're welcome to. You can do all graduate theses and dissertations, but I think it's more useful to go to your actual college and click on it. You'll see some dissertations, sometimes you'll see some reports, and if you keep going down, you'll see these. So you can actually click on these, the whole PDF comes, and you can peruse what people before you. So if your professor is still talking about this other graduate student like they were amazing, you could always look them up in here and be like, he's not that amazing. No. Or be like, oh, I'm going to take some tips from this guy, you know. So feel free to do that. I think it's a really powerful thing. But I did want to show you Scopus before we all go in and for our last step, find by librarian.
So if you get commons list, there are things that are published at USU.
Yes, it tries to collect the scholarship of USU. So whether that's a scholarly article that's been published by a professor or theses or dissertations with you. So we don't always have everything because sometimes if I, as a professor, publish something and I sign away my copyright, you might not be able to get it open access. Mostly we try and get everything.
Other kinds of things in there though are like posters that students have presented at local meetings
Yeah.
here. Sometimes grant information, faculty is in there related to projects. We have data management
Yeah, and there is a link right on the library's homepage. So if you Google USU libraries, you will get to us. But if you go to Digital Commons, you get all that stuff. So you can do conferences and events and times on Facebook too. And often you can filter by color. Other questions before we go play around? It's just sometimes in secondary, guys. I always tell my classes, I'm like, nobody in here can out-nerd me. I was like a marketing band. I'm an engineering librarian. I play D&D. What else was it? The Girl Scout. So, anyway, I win. If it's a contest, which I think it is with graduates. Okay, so let's go back to the library's homepage. And then we're going to go to articles and databases, which we went through before. So you can find it under Find. Articles and databases are under Find here on the homepage. And if you go there, we're going to go to Scopus. Has anyone searched Scopus before? Okay. Scopus is a great, giant database with a ton of information, and almost all of it is scholarly articles. There are some exceptions. I'm probably going to do a search and first it'll pull up a book or something, but usually it's all scholarly articles. So let's go to Scopus. You can do databases by titles in addition to browsing the subject area. So I'm just going to click on S for Scopus, and all our S1s will come up. And then I'm going to click on this. Does anyone have a search that I could do? By the way, I usually just ask this because I don't want you to think that like I prepared something or, you know, and I want you to see how messy it is because I'll probably do a pretty bad search at first, so I can get way better in maybe 20 minutes, but that's good. Yeah, it's pretty multidisciplinary. I'll tell you if I think it won't work, but yeah. And interest development. Okay. So she said mindfulness and interest development. So we can play around with that a little bit. Also, I appreciate that you said mindfulness because we're talking about mindful searching. So this should remind you. So perfect. Let's see what happens. So is interest development like a phrase that's normally used by what field? Education. Okay, perfect. Never spell in front of top. Yeah, if you think it's hard to spell, try spelling in front of like. So you notice I'm putting quotes around this because I want to put that glue together because you told me it's a phrase that people next to use. So let's see if anything happens. You might get nothing. Let's see what happens. And then it's really great for you. There might be stuff in there. We'll see that. Oh, so I'm finding nothing. Yes! Best dissertation or thesis ever. Okay. You're going to be world famous. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take these quotes off because that limits it. Now the problem is if I take those quotes off, that development goes like, oh, children are interested in mindfulness and they develop. Like, so you can get some really bad stuff, but I'm going to play around with it. So if I go in, actually, I'm just going to take development off. I'm afraid it'll come up too much. That's a very general term. It's like putting in benefit or effects. Those aren't really great search terms because they're so broad. So what do you mean by interest development, though? If we can just talk for 1 second. What does it mean? I'm an engineering person. Yes. Oh, okay. So that there is a process. Okay. Oh, interesting. So if I was doing a search for real, I might say, hey, you're in education. Let's go to the education databases and switch back and forth and see if we can find different keywords to use. But since I'm just trying to show you a few things in this focus, I'm not really going to do that right now. But if we were really having a consultation, if I was the education librarian, I'd like education librarian. So they might automatically know other things to search in better places. But we would sit down and have that conversation. So if you see here, it says I got 557 document results. So that's a lot, but it's not Google a lot, right? Like Google would get you a lot more. But here we have just scholarly stuff. So keep that in mind. The other thing is that you can, it usually defaults to sorting by date. They're like, you're scientists, researchers, you want to know the newest things. Do they assume that? You can change it to relevance if you want to. You say, no, I want to know that interest is coming up more than once, so I'm going to put relevance on it. But I'm actually going to do something else for me. So let me do this. I'm going to sort by cited by. Anyone see this cited by? You know what it means? So if you do it that way, okay. So the one that's cited the highest has been cited over 1,800 times. I don't have any articles cited that much. Not me. But so it's been cited a lot. So if we had worked on it and really gotten some great keywords, and then if we did that and found an article that's been cited almost a couple thousand times, maybe you should use it. Maybe you should at least look at it, right? Because a lot of people have cited it. So in that way, it's saying like this is a weighty article because it's been cited a lot. Unless you look at all those citations and they're saying what crap it is, but usually people don't do that 2,000 times. Except for on Reddit, they do it on Reddit. But it's on the internet. So if this was a good search, we could kind of do it that way and see who's been cited a bunch of times. What's the problem with this search? What if I'm a genius and I published something last month? Is it going to be cited? So those alerts that you could set up can catch things like that, but you won't get it by, don't always just default that way and only look that way. Does that make sense? Even if you have great search, like you'll want to look at some of the new stuff too. The other thing to know is say, so and this is just a definition of mine. So you can see why it's published, cited a lot, because anything that's a definition, and it's a scientific definition is kind of for a lot of people probably in the area of science. So you can do two things here. You can see who cited them. So cited by these almost 2,000 documents. So you can see all of them right there. But you can also, so this was published in 2004. So this is going into the future after 2004. Who cited this? You can also go down to the bottom and see who they cited. So who are they basing their stuff on? What giants are they saying? Yeah. Oh. No, it should have both if you still have both or not. So let's click on it. It might be somewhere else. Oh yeah. So yeah, it has one and then the rest line on it. So interest is a hard word, so I would probably put interest development in quotes, but I think you should play around with your subject librarian and see what words work better. And some of that is just text and digging, and sometimes it can be super annoying. And you have a general term like that that's hard to your grade and stuff. And honestly, some of them automatically truncate too, so sometimes what you get stuff pulled up where it said the researchers were interested, and it's not even about interest, but it's about their interest in that field, so it's not. So those are things to be aware of. Actually, I had a friend in grad school, when I was in library school, she was searching, it was around Thanksgiving, so she was searching in Turkey, and honestly, she didn't want to make her family sick. She got all this stuff about the president of Turkey, didn't know. So stuff happens, be aware of it. You can get false drops, but we can certainly sit down with you one-on-one and talk about that. Uh-huh. I'm gonna. Yeah. Yeah, I would just come by the desk or talk to your public librarian and like, you can even in your email, you can preface and say, hey, I searched in these two databases, and these two firms, and didn't find anything. You can figure stuff out there. I get emails like that all the time, and sometimes I'll go in really fast and do a search too, and I'll be like, I'm not getting anything either, give me a few days. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, I can't find anything. So sometimes it's just nice having a professional searcher back you up, honestly, even if the only thing the subject librarian says is like, yeah, me neither. I would do 5 more databases, found nothing. So it might be helpful. Other questions?
Are these things that it's searching worldwide, or are they only the things that the library pays for?
Great question. So Scopus is actually a search tool. So it's just a discovery tool. But actually, if you go through here, there's no PDFs of the whole thing. Even if you click on it, then once you want to involved. So save to PDF. That means save this record to PDF. That is not a PDF of the article. So do not be tricked by that. Normally, when it has PDF in other databases, it has the full article. If you wanted this, what you would have to do is click on article. So this is a discovery tool. The article linker is like a middleman that talks in between all of our hundreds of databases and says, which database do you own it in? If it. Sometimes we won't own it at all. This is just a discovery tool. So to see if you own it, you would click on article linker. And then it takes forever. Class. I guess how are you? But usually it'll either pull up a link to, I think what it's meant. Okay. So sometimes you have to click twice, which is really annoying. Usually it should just come up in this window. But, and of course the example I showed you is not working. So I'm going to make a record of this and take it to our tech people, but technically it should bring it up. If this happens to you, what I tell my students to do is to email me and say, hey, this article, I couldn't find it. Here's all the information for it. Or you can actually get it. Copy and paste this and email to me and say, hey, why can't I get access to this? And I'll write it back. Sometimes I even send videos back of the steps I took. If I'm like, oh, you can find it this way, and I'll show them how.
Are most students aware of the Cisco client, so if you're working off campus and trying to use these types of resources, is that something you discuss?
Well, the VPN you no longer necessarily have to use, because you can get in through proxy. But that's a good question. So these databases like Scopus, we can't do. So they're not just for free online, you can't just Google them. What you have to do is go to the library homepage, and then it'll ask you for username and password. Now, if you are on the VPN, it should work. Because, yes, so the Cisco VPN, if you're not familiar with that, if you don't have to use it for your work or worry about it, I would say you can get in here through your email and password. But if you are on the VPN, it should automatically know that you're US. Other questions? So, before you leave today, I kind of wanted everybody to know who their librarian is because I've been talking this up, so I wanted you to leave with a person. So if you take your phone and actually go to library.usu.edu, or if you have a laptop, that works too. So again, it's library.usu.edu. And the button here is you can click on Meet with a Librarian. And actually, this little person icon is how it will come up on here. There's a little person icon under Ask Us. And if you click on that, it will take you to this page, but it won't have a picture, just so you're aware. And you can put in your department. And so if you're in wildlife, you can put in wildlife, and someone will come up. If you're in engineering education, you can put that in, and someone will come up. If you can't find it, call it over. You can do this by department. So you can find your librarian. Actually, I have all the librarians' cards. So if you do want the card of your librarian, I am more than happy to give it to you at this point. Yeah.
So what the departments you're in, you also have more kind of overlap with other departments? You have to say you're a department librarian?
Not necessarily. So if you're in psychology, but you do a lot of education, you can talk to both. You can talk to one. You could pit them against each other and see who can get better stuff. Deathmatch. We're in deathmatch. Does anybody want a card?
Where did you say to go? I was
Oh,
seeing
man.